Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for clicking on the video. So in case you haven't heard, we are doing a giveaway, and our most popular request was the VR headset. So I went and picked this up about 2 days ago. So we just got red because we kind of thought it was like a gender neutral color. But yeah, here it is. If you want to know the details and the qualifications for that, go check out the video down below that says giveaway details and qualifications. And our 3-year-old daughter decided that it'd be super cool to rip open this side of the tape, but it is brand new, I promise you, never been used. I don't really know how to use one of these either. So here it is. Go check out the video down below that says giveaway details and qualifications. And one thing, little question that I am going to answer that I've been getting. Yes, if you want to be entered in the giveaway, you do have to be subscribed to us and follow our Instagram and make sure that you are liking that video. If you are not doing those 3 things, you will not qualify for the giveaway. And to be honest, I've had about, let me see, 15 people enter the giveaway, 3 of which are only subscribed. So if you're one of those 3, good, because those are the only 3 people that have actually subscribed to our channel, like the video, and follow us on Instagram. So if you want to be entered in a giveaway, make sure you go and check out that video and follow the rules. So anyways, I thought that I would tell you guys our story. I kind of told you guys in the last video that I would explain to you guys why we do not have another child. So I'm just going to jump right into that because it's going to kind of be a long video. So back when I was about 19 years old, I already knew that it was going to be about impossible for me to have children. Just because of, I don't know, just because they told me it would be almost impossible for me to have children. Back when I was 19 years old, I had gotten pregnant, and at 7 weeks and 3 days along, I lost the baby. It was very, very difficult for me, and I felt like maybe my only chance of ever becoming a mother, I had just lost it, and it slipped right through my hands. So about 6 months had passed, and I had been just trying to move on with my life and figure things out and everything like that, and I had gotten pregnant again, and I had felt pretty hopeful. About 1 month into the pregnancy is when things kind of shifted for me, and I started experiencing some really, really heavy bleeding, and I just didn't know what was really going on. Obviously that raised some concern due to the fact that I was pregnant, and so my husband and I, we went to the doctor's office, and they told us that they couldn't find a heartbeat on the baby and that I was 6 weeks along, but that since the fetus was only 6 weeks along, they wanted me to wait a little bit longer and come back in about 2 weeks and see if maybe there was a heartbeat or something. So that was like one of the longest 2 weeks of our lives, and when we went back in, the fetus was measuring at 7 weeks and 3 days along and still had no heartbeat. They did a blood draw and tested my levels and seen that my levels had been decreasing, and so once again I had had another miscarriage at 7 weeks and 3 days again, and so it was really difficult for us, and we had just decided that we were done. We didn't want to have any more kids, and for a while we just thought maybe in a year we'll change our mind and want to have a baby, and just different things like that. So probably about a month and a half after that, the second miscarriage, I'd been noticing I was feeling kind of off, and I didn't want to eat the foods that I normally like to eat. I was disgusted, so disgusted by guacamole and avocados, and those are like my favorite foods in the whole world, and I've always absolutely hated beans, and I was eating beans, and I'm like, okay, something's wrong with me here. So my husband and I went to Walmart and got a pregnancy test, and that thing lit up positive so quickly. But we were so scared. Um, we were kind of in shock. We just didn't even know what to think. We were like, oh my gosh, we just lost our baby and now we're pregnant again. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm not really pregnant and this is like some pregnancy hormones that are left over from the miscarriage, since it's only been a month and a half. But I also hadn't had my cycle. So a little history there is ever since I started my period back when I was 12 years old, I have never, ever, ever been regular. I would go 4 to 6 months without a cycle, and then I would have one. And it would just be a normal cycle. It wouldn't be like super duper heavy because I didn't have one for 6 months. And that I was already, at this time, 20 years old, and that had still been the same exact way. So it wasn't uncommon for me not to have a cycle. So it didn't really raise too much of a concern for me. But I just thought, I'll just wait a couple weeks and take another pregnancy test. But I just couldn't wait. I just called the doctor and I was like, I took a pregnancy test. I missed my cycle this month and it was positive. And so they were like, okay, let's get you in right away. And so I think it was probably about a week later, I went in for an ultrasound and I was only 4 weeks along. So at this point, it was only just a gestational sac. And there was like a little bud growing, and she told me that that little bud is where the baby would form. And so they had me wait 2 more weeks. And after those 2 more weeks, we went back in, and I was only 6 weeks and 6 days along. And when we went back in, our baby had a heartbeat, and they told me that the pregnancy was supported very well, and we were super excited. But I just had this little fear sitting in the back of my mind because I knew that my 2 previous miscarriages were at 7 weeks and 3 days, and I was at 6 weeks and 6 days. And so I told the doctor, I was like, is there any way that I could come in before having to wait until I'm 12 weeks along? I'm scared. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm terrified. I don't want to lose this baby. What is there that I can do? Is there like hormones that could be put on to help support this pregnancy or or whatever? And she told me that my levels were extremely high and that the pregnancy was super well supported and that she didn't see any reason for concern to put me on any progesterone or anything. So she told me that the earliest they could get me in was at the 6 weeks, and was in 6 weeks. And so of course I took it, and in the meantime, that was like the hardest, longest moment of my life. I didn't know whether or not my baby was dead or alive. I didn't know if I just didn't know anything. I was just scared. Every single day I would wake up and I would just place my hand on my stomach and tell myself, there's the baby in there. Enjoy it while you can because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And so 6 weeks had passed and we went to the doctor, and he just kind of asked us a couple of routine questions, and we just didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know that if he put down the ultrasound machine thing on me, if I was going to see a 7 week and 3 week baby, 7 weeks and 3 day week baby in there that had no heartbeat, or if I was going to see a 12-week fetus. So the moment that he set that ultrasound thing on my belly, I can see the baby just jumping and sliding all the way back down, and jumping up and sliding all the way back down. And instantly my heart was just filled with so much joy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. I am having a baby. Like this, that was so exciting for us. But I was still just feeling uneasy. I just felt like if, I know after 12 weeks or 13 weeks or something, they say that you're just out of the woods as far as like a miscarriage. But I was just really, really scared. I was like, what if I had a late term miscarriage or a stillbirth or something? I just knew I couldn't handle that. And so I was probably, let's see, I was about 15 weeks along, and I had a friend who was 4 weeks ahead of me, and she had got into a car accident and lost her baby. She was only 17 weeks along when that happened, and so that scared me so much more, just because it was wintertime and there was like a lot of snow, and that's what caused their car accident. Was it was just so slick out, they just slid on some ice, and that's a whole different story. But either way, I was terrified, terrified, terrified. And so at that point, I think I was 13 weeks and she was 17. But either way, at my 17 weeks, I was super duper sick. I wasn't feeling the baby move. I was just miserable. I couldn't talk. And I woke my husband up and I told him with like the little tiniest, quietest voice possible that I needed to go to the hospital because there was something wrong with me. And when I went there, they had told me that I had a rotavirus, I think is what it was called. I don't know what, but it was like the worst sickness I had ever had in my life. But the baby's heartbeat was still going strong and everything was good. And so we were super excited, and I just kept thinking to myself, just get over this sickness so you can, enjoy your pregnancy. And I was just trying to encourage myself every day because it was the worst, most miserable sickness ever, 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 ever. And so at 22 weeks, we found out that we were having a little girl. And then at 30 weeks, my water broke. And this is when I became extremely frightened because I knew that, I know the survival rate was somewhere in between 60 to 70%, they had told me. But I just was scared what mom wouldn't be. And when I went in, I told them that my water had broke, but they insisted that I was just peeing myself. So I know the difference, just so we'll make that clear. I know the difference. And so they sent me home, and I was really upset because at this point I was like experiencing a lot of Braxton Hicks, a lot of nausea, a lot of discomfort, and I was definitely having contractions, just constant contractions. So about a week had passed by, and again I felt water trickling down my leg, and I went back to the doctor and I said, okay, I know that my water is broken. I said I can feel the fluid just pouring down my leg. I soaked through some pants. I'm like, is there a way that we can do an ultrasound or whatever? So they did an ultrasound, and they did a couple tests and stuff, and she said everything is fine. The baby looks good. The baby looks healthy. You have extra amounts of fluid. There's no signs of stress. Your water is not broken. You must have peed yourself. And I told her, I said, I legitimately had just got out of the bathroom and I was walking down the stairs, and then just instantly fluid just started pouring out, and I soaked through an entire pair of pants, even through my slippers. So I was sent home anyways, and I was just really, really frustrated at this point, not feeling very well. I was just tired, miserable, having tons of contractions and Braxton Hicks and all these different things. And so at exactly 32 weeks, I was at church with my mom, and I felt like if I was going to faint. I told my mother, I was like, I think that something's wrong. My daughter hasn't been moving for the last about 2 weeks. I have not been able to get my 10 kicks a day. And I'm just super scared that she's gonna die. I'm like, she's gonna die. I'm terrified of that. It runs preeclampsia runs in my family, and a lot of my cousins and aunts and things like that have had a lot of babies born early. And so I knew that that was definitely a big possibility. I just didn't think I would have the baby that early. And so we went into the hospital. They did a few more testing. They told me that my fluid was supposed to be like 0.5 or whatever, and that I was measuring at 26.5. So it was like a humongous difference. The lady told me that like my baby was just like floating in my water. She's like, you have so much water in there. She's like, this belly isn't all just baby. She's like, this belly is mainly fluid. And so I don't know, I really don't remember too much of what happened. I just know I was really angry because she told me that I was going to end up going home because my water was most definitely not broken. And so I was very, very upset. And I told my mom, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm going to end up going home and having a baby in my bedroom because I feel miserable. I have horrible contractions. I've been leaking fluid for the past 2 weeks. And I was like, I feel like death. I was like, something is definitely wrong. I was like, and I'm like, at this point, I'm almost crying. And she comes back in and she's like, well, after we performed a few tests, your water is definitely broken, and she's like, and you're actually developing an infection. That is why I was feeling so miserable. But I guess that the break was just like a tiny little slit that had happened, and so my daughter would, when she would move her head over, she was head down obviously, and whenever she would move over, she would unplug it, and so that's when I would leak. But then she would move back over and plug up the hole, cut, slice, whatever you want to call it, that was making my fluid leak. And so they sent me to a hospital about an hour away from where we live, and I had to sit there for 3 weeks until I hit 35 weeks. And that was just excruciating. I was in constant pain. I was constantly having contractions. They were always 4 to 6 minutes apart. I had to get put on some steroids to help her lungs develop faster. I was on some antibiotics. At this point, they found out I was also anemic, like severely anemic. And so I was also having to take iron pills. And who in the world would love staying in a hospital? Like, no one. Like, they pester you every, like, 20 minutes just to check on you, and I had to have those bands on my belly all the time, and it was just an uncomfortable, annoying 3 weeks of my life. But it was okay. I got my little girl out of it, and so if I had to do it all over again, I most definitely would. It was in July after I had my daughter. She was born in June. So in July of that same year, I was just kind of feeling off. I had noticed a little weight gain, and I had been experiencing a lot of ovarian pain. And so I went to the doctor, and that is when I got diagnosed with PCOS. And obviously, I already knew that it would be almost impossible for me to have children, but then to hear that I have PCOS was just an absolute shock, because I knew that my chances were even more slim now. And so my husband and I, we still decided to get on some birth control because we knew that we didn't want to have another child right away. Just because you never know, there are people with PCOS do get pregnant all the time. Or I shouldn't say all the time because I don't really know, but a lot of people with PCOS still get pregnant. So we did get on birth control. I got on the Nexplanon, and we were just on that until May of 2016 is when we decided that we would start trying again for another baby. And so when we removed the Nexplanon, I told my husband that I wanted to wait about 2 cycles before we actually started trying to have another child. So June came along and I didn't have a cycle. July came along and I didn't have a cycle, which for me wasn't uncommon, but I just thought that after being on this birth control for so long, I would get off of it, my body would change, I would have a cycle. August came around and I did not have a cycle, but September 1st ended up having a cycle, but it lasted 2 months and I was just miserable. I was, hemorrhaging. Just, I couldn't keep up with the fluids to counteract what I was losing. So, I went into the doctor and just kind of had, talked with them about different options, and they wanted me to get back on birth control. And for me, that seemed like, okay, I just took all these steps forward and now I have to take all these steps backwards. And I was like, I just didn't really know what to do. And in the end, I decided not to get on that birth control again, or any birth control to top it off. And so I just thought, okay, I'll just let my body wean itself off of this. It might take a while for it to happen. But nothing really ever changed. I would skip 3 or 4 months of a cycle and then have a cycle, and that would last a month or two, and then skip 2 or 3 months, and it just been going off and on like that for about 1 year. In June of this year, I had missed my cycle, and I had gotten regular probably in about February. I would say February is when I started like having, I guess, a regular cycle every month. When June hit, I missed my cycle, and I was like, okay, and I had not been able to track an ovulation for months now, and the doctor had told me that he did not think I was ovulating at all, and we had decided that we were going to get on Clomid just to kind of boost that up. But after reading a few things about Clomid and running the risk of having multiples, we just decided that we weren't going to do the Clomid because everyone in our lives that we know that has taken Clomid has twins or more. And it's not the fact that we don't want to have twins. We just feel like it would be really difficult for us. We would have to search for a whole new car, a whole new home, which, I mean, obviously, anytime you get pregnant, you run the risk of having multiples anyways. But we just didn't want to be taking pills that would most likely give us twins or triplets or whatever. We just thought that if we conceive twins naturally, then awesome. And if not, oh well, I guess. So, in June, like I said, I had missed my cycle, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait a couple weeks, and then I'll take a pregnancy test and just see if I don't start. So about 3 weeks went by. At this time, it was probably like the 3rd week of June, and 3rd or 4th week of June, and I took the pregnancy test, and it came back negative. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I just am skipping this month. We'll see what happens when July comes along. So July comes along and still nothing. And so I'm like, okay, it's almost 2 weeks into July. I'm going to take another pregnancy test. And I can see the slightest faint line. The line wasn't even colored on the pregnancy test to say that it was positive. You can see it, but I don't know how to explain it. And I was just like, you know what? It's a cheapy pregnancy test. I most likely am not pregnant. But I had been having a lot of symptoms of pregnancy. I had been up every single morning, 6 a.m., come 6 a.m. I was in the bathroom with morning sickness. I couldn't smell everything. I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was crazy. So, I was like, okay, well, I took the pregnancy test and stuff, and like I said, the line wasn't colored, but you can definitely see it. And it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it, like I said. Anyways, so it was later on that night, because I took that test with my, early in the morning, and so later on that night, it's probably around midnight actually. All of a sudden, I just kind of felt like a bursting sensation, and all of a sudden I just started hemorrhaging like severely, and so I went to go sit down in a bathtub, and when I went to go sit down in a bathtub, I ended up passing a sack, and so I definitely knew that I was pregnant. I just didn't know how far along I was. Um, Judging based off like the size of the sack and everything. I mean, honestly, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that I was anything further than 5 weeks along. I had only been, my cycle was due January 1st, or sorry, June 1st, and this was July 13th when this happened. So I was assuming that I probably lost the pregnancy early on, and then it just took a while for my body to adjust to the fact of that the pregnancy was gone and to release it and everything. So that was a really big disappointment for us and stuff. And so we just kind of determined for ourselves that if we didn't get pregnant by January of 2018, that we were just going to be done. We haven't been trying. We just kind of said if it happens, it happens. If not, oh well. I've seen a lot of people in my life and have read stories and different things like that where they get so caught up in trying to have another child when they already have a child, and different things like that, that it overruns their lives and their marriage. And I've seen and heard people talk about how they're unhappy and they don't even know how to be happy anymore, and they're miserable, and just all these different things. And I thought to myself, and I told my husband, I said, I don't want that. I want to be grateful for and I'm not saying that these people are ungrateful. I really don't know. But my own personal opinion is I want to be grateful for what I have, and I don't want my infertility and my past of miscarriages and loss to determine my future. I want us to say, if we have another baby by this time, we have another baby by this time. If not, then we're done, and that's that. And it's not gonna, yes, it might be a little bit sad, like, oh, we never got to have another baby, but I don't want it to run my life, if that makes sense. And we're just kind of in this time in between. We don't know where the future will lead us, and we don't want to sit there and dwell in the past. And we just kind of have been letting life happen day by day and taking life as it comes day by day. We don't want to just be like, oh, this is what we want and we're going to try it and we're going to do it no matter what. Obviously, if we could afford to have in vitro or something like that, I think that we would definitely try that. But I don't want to save up and spend all kinds of my money, and it might sound a little selfish, but I don't want to spend 12, 13, 14 grand on trying to become pregnant and risk losing that child, or it just absolutely failing, when I can spend that money on taking my family on a vacation, or paying off the rest of my vehicle, or putting that money away for my daughter's college fund right now, and just different things like that. And it sounds a little selfish, but that I personally just feel like that's just my own thought and my own opinion. I don't think it's ridiculous or selfish at all when people do spend money multiple times on in vitro and things like that. Um, that's their thing, and I 100% support that. But for me and my family, um, that's just kind of how we feel, how I feel, and how my husband feels is like, I would rather use that money to better myself now or my daughter's future, or use that as a down payment for a home or different things like that. So that kind of is also where the name of our YouTube channel comes into place, because we're at this time in between our lives, and that's just, yeah. So I had another couple questions that I was going to answer for you guys. One of the things there is why don't I really show my daughter, and any pictures that I have posted of her face is pretty concealed. I know that there's a few out there with her, but she does have on a hat and different things like that. And for me, that's just kind of like, I've seen it happen with other YouTubers, kids just being out there, and I personally don't like that for my child. Whatever everyone else likes for their own child, that's their thing. But for me and my child, I don't want my child's face out there for anyone to be able to grab her pictures, anyone to be able to know things all about her and her life, and schooling and just different things like that. So we've just kept that pretty private. She didn't choose to start YouTube, we did, and we don't want her to later on have problems in school or something like that. So yeah, that's it for now, guys. I will see you guys on Monday, so don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.